We appreciate that, and then we'll start with your questions. And we can start with you. Sorry.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you all for coming out tonight. It is great to see you. My name is Gaillot. I am the Democratic congressional nominee for the 3rd District of North Central Florida. I've never held elected office before. I'm not a professional politician. I'm a small business owner. I own a cell phone accessory store, and I've been a political consultant. My father's a retired diplomat, and I've spent 5 years working in Washington as a former political director for a firm, GMS Consulting. This election is extremely, extremely important. The differences could not be clearer. There are some important issues. I urge you to really pay attention this evening so you can understand the clear differences and why you need to vote on November the 6th and make the right decision and the right choice. Thank you.
Mr. Yoho?
Welcome, everybody. Good seeing you here tonight. Thanks for the opportunity to come here. I appreciate it. My name is Ted Yoho, and I'm a candidate for the 3rd Congressional District Republican nominee. And my background is I'm a family man. I've been married to my wife, Carolyn, who's up here from the front for 37 years. We're the proud parents of 3 children. Our oldest is actively serving our country in the Coast Guard. I'm a University of Florida graduate, graduated in 1983 from the College of Veterinary Medicine. I've practiced in this area for the last 29 years. I've owned my own business for the last 25 and a half years. In addition, I'm a Christian, I'm a conservative, and I'm a Republican who's called this area, North Central Florida, home for the last 35 years. And I'm running in this race because I got to a point as a business owner and as a veterinarian where I said, I just had enough. I had enough of the direction of our country. I feel America's lost its way. And for me, I had enough of Washington standing in the way of job creation. I had enough of the career politicians who created this mess failing to take the responsibility for it, yet they insist that they're the only ones who can get us out of this. And I had enough of the politicians undermining our Constitution, that our liberties and freedoms in this country and our lifestyles are dependent on our liberties and freedoms, and they come from the Constitution that guarantees our God-given created rights that come from a creator and not from government. And what I realize is that career politicians either led us to where we're at, or they failed to prevent it, and neither is acceptable. And I think most Americans feel that we don't care which side broke it, we just want it fixed. And that's what I plan to do, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll begin with Mr. Yoho with questions. First question is, one of the most controversial pieces of legislation passed recently is the Affordable Care Act, which mandates all citizens have health insurance. Do you agree with or oppose this law, and why?
Well, I agree it is one of the most controversial. I 100% disagree with that. Our goal is to 100% defund and bury and make sure that kind of legislation never comes out of Washington again. When you have legislation that comes out of the halls of Congress, the very people that are supposed to be running this country, and it comes out with disclaimers that say we have to pass it to see what's in it, we have to pass it to see how it's going to work, I find that unacceptable, and the people I've talked to feel that way too. We've got the best health care in this country. What we need to do is fix the delivery system, and that's why we need strong leadership up in Washington, and the only way we're going to get that is by sending a different type of person. Our goal is to open up the insurance borders so there is competition that will drive down costs, tort reform, and remove the burdensome rules and regulations and mandates that are crippling doctors and insurance companies. And that's our goal.
Thank you, sir.
Same question, I'm assuming?
Same question.
I fully support the Affordable Care Act. It is a necessity. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. It is a starting point. Personally, I would have preferred a single-payer option, but we don't have that. I don't like the individual mandate. I've been on record as saying that. But let me tell you about all the good things about the Affordable Care Act. Insurance companies can no longer deny you if you have a pre-existing condition. That's important. Young people can stay on their parents' plan until the age of 26 as they strive to get into the workforce, graduate from college or graduate school. That's important. One of the things you have to ask yourself, what do you do with the children who are born like Stacy's daughter. She's born with a congenital heart defect. 3 surgeries. Prior to the passage of the Affordable Care Act, or as known as Obamacare, she would not be able to be covered by insurance. But thanks to that, that little girl now has a future. This is why it's important. Washington has been part of the problem, there's no question about it. However, it takes leadership, it takes compromise, it takes the ability to reach across the aisle and individually talk with the right parties and come up with viable solutions. Just because an idea is not my idea, just because an idea doesn't come from my party, doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad idea. So yes, I do fully support the Affordable Care Act.
If you're elected, you will take an oath of office that requires you to support and defend the Constitution. What does that mean to you?
The Constitution is a key component of America. To me, it is an absolute sacred document. Our forefathers had the knowledge when they wrote the Constitution to understand that they didn't know everything. And that is why we have a system of checks and balances. Protecting the Constitution means following the law of the land. And that includes some laws that, personally, I may not necessarily agree with. My job as the representative is not to shove my personal beliefs down your throat. I am not here to tell you how to live your life. You will make that decision. And you will answer to God, our Creator, on your own. It is not my place. The job of a representative is to help, is to build a better pathway so that anyone who wants to achieve success can actually achieve it. That is the job.
Thank you. Mr. Yoho.
The Constitution, again, it is the law of the land. Our country is formed by our founding fathers that came together. And the Constitution was over 1,000 years in design, from the Magna Carta through things over from the 1000s. And our founding fathers got it right. And it says that our rights and our liberties come from a creator, not from government. And our Constitution was written to protect the individuals, our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, from government getting too big. And if you read the Constitution and look at it, it's only 15 pages in size, approximately. It's not an epic in volume. But yet if you read it, it's an epic in ideology, because it says that free men and women can become whatever they want to in a society that values free enterprise, values the God-given rights that we have, and it's our duty that when government outgrows those restrictions put on it, it's our duty, but more importantly, it's our responsibility to change government. And that's up to us, we the people, and that's what we need to do, and that's why we need strong leadership that will follow the Constitution. And if you look at the Affordable Health Care Act, it's not constitutional.
With the national debt now over $16 trillion, it is likely that Congress will again face the need to raise the debt ceiling next year. What is your philosophy regarding debt reduction?
Well, if we look over the last 7 years, or last 10 years, the debt ceiling's been raised 7 times in the last 10 years. It doesn't work. We have a spending problem in America. We don't have a revenue problem. What we need to do is we need to cut the spending, and we need to make the redundancy we have in government, we need to pare those back, and we need to get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse, anywhere from the military to the Medicare to Social Security, and get those things under control. When our government comes to us, and they do a study every 2 to 3 years and say, Medicare has been found to have 60 to 90 billion dollars in fraud and abuse, and we don't do anything with that. It's time we get that under control. And the other thing we need to do is we need to have a growing economy. And the way you do that is to get government out of the way of business, so that businesses can go back to work and hire people, and it'll raise the revenues coming in. And that's what we need, is strong leadership to do that.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the question again?
Sure. With the national debt now over $16 trillion, it's likely that Congress will again face the need to raise the debt ceiling. What is your philosophy regarding debt reduction?
Washington does have a spending problem. There's no question about it. One of the points I want to address is the fraud that is associated, for example, with Medicare. percentage of patients that come back within 30 days. 2 million people are readmitted into hospitals within 30 days of leaving. We need to practice preventive medicine. If we do that, that's $79 billion saved right now. But now let's talk about the national debt. We have to fully audit the Federal Reserve, period. Anybody who tells you otherwise, it's all nonsense, it's all talk. If we do not fully audit the Federal Reserve to truly understand where we are spending our money. A few years ago, a partial audit was passed, and that partial audit was recently completed. When the Gaillot, the Government Accountability Office, released their report, the Federal Reserve lent out $16 trillion, $16.4 trillion to U.S. banks and foreign governments and foreign banks. What's our national debt, folks? $16 trillion. That is why the Federal Reserve must have a full audit. Because if they didn't lend out that money, guess what? We don't have a debt. That's important.
Everyone seems to agree that a critical part of dealing with the economic recession is job creation. What role can Congress play in helping to create jobs?
Congress plays a tremendous role in creating jobs. It is important. Jobs is the #1 issue, especially right here in the 3rd Congressional District. I have proposed a comprehensive job plan, and it starts with the Gainesville Airport. My plan talks about making the Gainesville Airport a hub. 2 additional runways bring 3 additional airlines and 4 new hotels. Those are permanent jobs over the next 4 years with an average salary of $41,000. Most people that live in the district, if you have to travel, you either have to pay an arm and a leg to fly out of Gainesville, or you drive to Jacksonville, or Orlando, or Tampa. And if you live in Brantford, or Live Oak, or Chiefland, all parts of the district, we're talking sometimes close to a 3-hour drive. We have an airport right here, folks, that is underutilized. That's where we start. So yes, as your representative, if you give me that honor, that will be among my top priorities to focus on, to start right there by creating the jobs. We need to rebuild our transportation infrastructure. Too many roads are under par, too many sinkholes, too many flooding that is happening. That's our relation to the transportation infrastructure. So Congress needs that. Congress right now is not in session. The GOP-led Congress has decided, hey, we're going to take the time off and let everybody go campaign. We have a farm bill that is expiring on September 30th. Congress should have been staying in session to pass that farm bill.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Everyone seems to agree that a critical part of dealing with the economic recession is job creation. What role can Congress play in helping to create jobs?
The best way that Congress can do that is address the issue. We've got a difference in opinion here. One of us thinks government is the answer to create the jobs and create more infrastructure and things like that. It's the local governments that need to work with that. What we need to do right now is Congress, or Washington in itself, the entirety, has created a climate of confusion in the marketplace. And they've done this through their rules, regulations, and mandates, one of them being the Affordable Patient Care Act. What Washington should do is create an environment of certainty so business people will go out there and invest in their business. And I say let's start with a dose of common sense. The first thing, and this comes from talking to business people over the course of the last 3.5 years, is the confusion that Washington has created. And like I said, we want to 100% repeal, defund, and bury the Affordable Patient Care Act. That's caused so much confusion. When I talk to business owners, they said they would hire more people. I've got one guy that's got 350 employees and he could expand 100 people. He says, I'm not doing anything until they fix that kind of regulation. And that's one man's business in one town with 100 people he could add. How many people around America are not expanding because of the uncertainty our government has created? The second thing we need to do is take a scalpel to the burdensome rules, regulations, and mandates that are stifling businesses and killing jobs. Again, we've got people that want to start businesses, but it's too restrictive for them to start. We need to peel back these regulations from these agencies that have so much power that they can choose what to regulate, how much to regulate, and they can, more importantly, they can implement it, and it bypasses Congress. These people are not held accountable. They're appointed people. And finally, we need to simplify our tax code. And I support the fair tax. It's not perfect. And I'd only support it if it repeals our income tax law.
Well, that leads right into the next question, which is, there's widespread agreement that something needs to be done about our income tax law, but little agreement about what to do for that. What do you think needs to be done about our tax code and why?
Who's first?
You're first.
Okay. We talk a lot about our tax code, and since the mid-1980s, there's been over 16,000 revisions to it. It's so complicated that people don't know how to follow it. And we've seen our country, our government, take a tax code that we have in this country, and they've divided the nation, our nation. You know, they put one segment of society against the other one, and they put blame on somebody that if you're successful, you've taken away from somebody else. The fair tax, like I said, is not perfect, but yet it takes that authority away from the government. And ultimately, I think it's the only thing we can do. And some people will say, well, it's an automatic 23% sales tax. It's not. People that tell you that are misleading you, because the fact is that it repeals all federal income tax. So it wipes out the embedded tax, and we wind up paying 22 to 25% on products right now that are embedded in there. For instance, if somebody buys a 2x4 at one of the big stores, that 2x4, somebody had paid for a tree to get harvested. Taxes were paid on that, and the labor. Somebody that bought the raw material paid taxes on that. The person that bought the rough cut lumber paid taxes on that. And when it goes to the wholesale store, we pay taxes on it. It would eliminate that. The other thing, it gets rid of all federal taxes, and it eliminates the inheritance tax, which at the end of this year is going to revert for people, especially in north central Florida, which is a large rural agricultural area. People that have land, they can only pass on $1 million to their heirs, and everything else is taxed at 55%. That's strictly redistribution of wealth, and that's a form of big government that I don't think our country was formed on.
I'm part of the 47%. I haven't been fortunate enough to make the kind of money where I owe the federal government taxes. So nobody likes the tax code. Nobody likes the IRS. I certainly don't. But since I am part of that 47% that does not pay federal income tax, so to me, the fair tax, a 23% national sales tax on all goods and services, will raise my taxes. So I'm not for it. I need to learn more about it. There's no question. And I'm looking forward to my opponent on the trail telling me more about why the fair tax should be brought to bear. But however, when businesses, and if the Federal Reserve, businesses are not lending because the banks are not, they're holding on to their money. The banks have been bailed out. But folks, we have not been bailed out. None of us here crashed the economy. Nobody here wiped out 401ks all across the board. There's no banker who went to jail for these things. Not one of them. If we did any of that stuff, we wouldn't be sitting here today. The Federal Reserve can lend out money to foreign corporations and foreign banks, and they can't force the power of these banks to lend. That's why if you visit my website, www.jrgaillot.com, and I have some literature outside, please grab it on your way out. I talk about why I'm a big fan of credit unions. We need to raise the cap so credit unions can lend up to 27.5%. That will create 6,000 jobs, and a quarter of them will be right here. 6,000 jobs in Florida, a quarter of them will be right here in the 3rd Congressional District. We need jobs, folks. The tax code isn't perfect, there's no question. You shouldn't need a law degree to understand it. You shouldn't have to pay someone to do your taxes. But I don't believe the fair tax is the answer.
How does what you believe spiritually affect your decisions? And please give an example.
My favorite verse in the Bible is, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds. For the testing of your faith develops perseverance." That's from the book of James, chapter 1. We all go through trials and tribulations. I have a deep faith. And yes, that drives what I do. But as your representative, it is not my position to shove my belief What you do is your business. What you do in the comfort of your own home, that's your problem. It has nothing to do with me. I am not the judge, and I don't plan on being the executioner as well. We have one side that talks about they want to eliminate big government. Well, the GOP has created the biggest increase in government, starting with Homeland Security, TSA, and I could go on and on. So yes, to answer your question more directly, ma'am, spirituality is a very, very important factor in my life, but it is my belief. It is my factor. This is how I raise my 3 children. This is how I handle my family. What you do, that's up to you.
Thank you. Mr. Yoho?
I've got several. A man earns his bread by the sweat of his brow is all what I've always lived by. And then the other one is, don't worry about the splinter in your neighbor's eye when you have a timber in your own. You know, we need to take care of ourselves in this country. And I've lived my life. My wife and I, we've been married for 37 years. We've been blessed. And everything we've accomplished, we put faith in God. And what we wound up doing is we worked like it depended on us. And we prayed like it depended on God, because it does. And it's led us to so many rewards in life. And to those that much has been given, much is expected. And I look forward to be able to represent this district and serve it like I service my clients in my veterinary practice, to go out and fulfill the need that we need in this country. Our country's hurting for leadership of all kinds. One of those is a spiritual leadership. You know, we've seen the Democrats in charge at one point in the last 20 or 30 years, and we've seen the Republicans in charge at one point in the last 30 to 40 years. And what we've seen is a slide of this country to where we've lost our way. Some people even say we're going into socialism. So there's a lot of issues that we need to talk about. But I think the biggest thing we need to do is focus on what made our country great. And it's our core values, our fundamental principles, and our Constitution. And if we don't get back to that, and we don't put God back into our society and honor that, then this country will stay in perils. And it goes back to what Benjamin Franklin said. If a sparrow cannot fall from a tree without God's notice, how can we expect a nation to rise without his aid?
You'll have the next 2 minutes to give a summary about your candidacy and or rebuttal. And we'll begin with Mr. Yoho.
Okay, to summarize this up, I feel very honored to have the ability to be at this point, to possibly be, and hopefully be, your representative for this district. I'm not doing this for a job. I had a great job and a career as a veterinarian, provided well for my wife and my family. It was very rewarding in the type of work we did. To have somebody come up and tell you about their animal and how it just made them feel good, how, you know, to save an animal for somebody, or to deliver that new foal, or to deliver that new calf. And this comes down to, for me, that this is, like I said, it's not a job. This is for a cause and a love of my country. I see a way of life in this country that is nowhere else in the world. And it's because we have a Constitution that protects the individual. It protects the things we have in this country. And if we are to lose that, we are going to lose the lifestyle we have. And I was talking to a client of mine that was a liberal Democrat. And she says, I can't support you because I'm a liberal Democrat. And I says, I understand that. I said, but you better hope and pray people like me get into office for a while, because we are looking to preserve our core values, our fundamental principles, and our Constitution. For if we lose that, people on the left, or people that like to have a voice of dissension on how bad this country is, you're going to lose that. And if you don't believe that, talk to somebody from Venezuela or Cuba, is all you have to do. And you'll find out that if this country fails, where are you going to go? If this country fails, who's going to be that calming force in the world that people can come to and say, you know what, I want to go to America because of the opportunity, because it says that free men and women can become whatever they want to, because they've got a country that protects those God-given rights, and they've got a Constitution that has withstood the test of time.
Ladies and gentlemen, we live in the greatest country in the world, the best. There's no question about that. And I am proud to be an American, and I'm sure all of you are proud to be here as well. yes, we have a difference of opinion in terms of how the role of government should play a part. You've heard me talk about that my personal opinions do not matter. However, neither side have done exactly a great job, Democrats and Republicans. We have shifted direction. There has been a growing disparity. We must be strong in our conviction. We must build a better pathway to success so that whoever wants to achieve that success can achieve it. It's not about bringing the other person down. It's about opportunity, folks. Opportunity. You've heard the saying, if opportunity comes knocking, will you open the door? Well, this is your chance. I'm not here to get along with my party or the other side. I'm here to represent you. This is about you, nothing more. We need jobs. There's no question. We need to improve the Affordable Care Act. We have a lot of work to do, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of work. This is not easy. Believe me, this is not easy. But I ask for your vote. I ask for your support on November the 6th. Again, please pick up literature at the end on your way out. Visit my website, jrgaillot.com. And thank you.
And that concludes tonight's event. Gentlemen, we're very grateful that we live in a country that allows us to host this event in a house of worship. And we're grateful that you were willing to come here tonight and you're willing to serve our country by campaigning for this office. You have a good night and best wishes.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you. No questions from the audience, huh?
I had one that I couldn't read, so I'm sorry, but they can